Okay. Okay. Well, what that was me just explaining to the students what the assignment is. And so they would listen to that. And then they would go in at this point and comment about whether they think these statements are true or false. So the way the student would do this, and they would be given some tutorials, of course, so they would know how to leave these comments. But they just click this comment button down at the bottom, and then it opens up different methodologies of commenting. So you can either leave a text by clicking the ABC, or you can use your computer's microphone by clicking the microphone icon or webcam. But for this one, I directed them to use the text. That way they could just read through how other students had answered these. So they would just click this, and then they would just click one, T or whatever it is. I won't do the whole thing. They would do that for all 10 statements, and then click save at the end. And then they could go over here and see what it is that they wrote. And they would also be able to see what all the other students did. It would just it would have these comments listed down here below from every student. And then the second part of the exercise was to respond. So they would look at how other students have answered those, and then they can reply to one other student by using this threaded reply. So this is where they're replying to a comment, and they clicked this here, and then they could, and I will record my voice. Okay, and so then they would record whatever disagreements they had and why, and then they would stop their recording. Save it. And then that reply would be shown linked to the comment that they're replying to. Okay, so let me go back here and stop sharing that and go back to share my file. Okay, so that's just one quick way of doing a think, pair, share through Voicethread. The second example is a group analysis. So you can use Voicethread to do group work, and this exercise is using Voicethread to do that. And so I will divide students into groups. I will let them know which group they're in through Blackboard. And then I just assign each group a very simple argument to try to analyze. So in philosophy, a big part of philosophy is analyzing arguments. And so I give them some instructions about how to do this. They're supposed to identify the conclusion of the argument. And then you're going to see in Voicethread, you can use a marker with different colors. So you can mark on the image that you've uploaded. And so I will ask them to use red to underline the conclusion of the argument, and then use some other color to identify the premises. And then I ask students to then use threaded commenting feature to come to some sort of consensus answer. So if they disagree with one another about how to analyze the argument, then they can use the comment feature in Voicethread to come to some sort of consensus. Okay, so I will now show you how that works. Let me again stop sharing this, go back to Voicethread. Here we go. And now I'm not sure if you will hear my voice or not, but at least there will be the subtitles. Actually, let me stop this for just a minute because I think I Okay, so here we go with this. And again, this is me giving the instructions to the student. Okay, Erica, can you let me know if that was heard?
No, we weren't able to hear
Okay,
anything, but we did see actions taking place.
okay, okay. I don't know why that's not coming through on my mic. I'm trying to put my mic up to the speaker and everything. As you can see, I'm more used to asynchronous environment than synchronous environment, but that was me giving them instructions to underline, to try to identify the conclusion of the argument, underline that in red, and then to underline the premises and the conclusion in some other color. And so at this point, what the students would do is go to the slide that has the group number up here. So they would go to whatever group it is that they belong to. And then they would analyze this argument just like I showed them to do. And so to do that, they would click this make a comment button, and then they could click their microphone, and then they could begin analyzing the argument by selecting the red color, identifying the conclusion, and then using some other color to identify each of the premises, right? And then they would then stop their recording. Okay, and then that would show, they could hover over this and watch how it is that they analyze the argument, and then they could also see how other students have analyzed the argument. Also, there is a feature in Voicethread which allows the instructor to moderate the comments, which would mean that students couldn't see other students' comments until the instructor has shown them. And so one way of doing this exercise would be to moderate those. That way they couldn't see how other students are analyzing it until they've done that themselves. And then after that, they could go back and see what other students did and then try to come to some sort of consensus. And so these other slides just are different groups, so they would just navigate to whatever group that they're in and then analyze the argument. Okay, so that's using Voicethread to do some sort of group work. Let me close this out once more. Okay, and then just two more quick examples. This next example, I actually do not use Voicethread this way, but I do know some other instructors who do. And this is instructor to student feedback. So you can have students create their own Voicethread. And one way to use that would be to have them upload a paper that they've written that you want to give some comments back on. And so they would upload their paper, and then you could comment on it and you could write on it just like we were doing earlier. And you could, again, either leave web-based comment or webcam comment or some other method. So for my own view here, I like to try to keep things in Blackboard as much as I can. So I use the feedback feature in Blackboard itself, but I do know some instructors who like this feature of Voicethread, so that's a possibility too. And then the last way that I use Voicethread is simply, well, really the main way I use it is to deliver presentations, so deliver some lecture material to them. And then along the way, I will prompt them to answer certain kinds of questions. And so this, first of all, helps me know that they're really watching the lecture material and that they're paying attention. And then I prompt them along the way to answer, certain kinds of ways, whatever that is. And then often at the very end of the lecture, I will use Voicethread to engage in a muddiest point exercise. So you might be familiar with that muddiest point exercise where you just have the students tell you what they thought the muddiest point of the whole thing was, what it is that they're not quite understanding. And then I can go back the following week and look how students responded to that. And if they're all find the same point muddy, or if many of them find the same point muddy, then I can go and try to clarify that the following week. So this is a way that students can give some feedback to the instructor along the way. Okay, so those are just 4 example cases of how you can use Voicethread to do what you might normally do in a face-to-face class. And so again, I try to keep this as simple as I possibly could, but we have some time for some questions. So I'll take those first if you have any questions, and then also any time we have remaining, if you use Voicethread, how do you use it? I'd be interested to know that. And if you don't use Voicethread, do you see any other ways of using it that maybe I'm not seeing? Or any other modes of increasing student engagement in online courses? I would love to learn from you all as well. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you, John. And as he had said, if there's any questions that you all have, feel free to post them in the chat, or if you'd like to just ask the question, raise your hand, and I will be more than happy to turn your mic on. So John, Scott has a question, John. Thinking of using it as a method for doing discussions, but still sussing out the how.
Right. So Voicethread does take a little bit of getting used to. I think it's pretty intuitive for the most part. But what I will do is I'm going to put a link in the chat, which takes you to Voicethread has a YouTube page, and they've give a bunch of tutorials. So this is how I learned to use it. And so if the question is about just the technological aspect of how, I'll put a link to their YouTube channel there. And there's probably everything you wanted to know about Voicethread and more there.
John also asks, John also asks, does one have to put a grade that you give to a Voicethread into Blackboard by hand?
Right. Okay, so there's different kinds of assignments that you can use Voicethread for. So first of all, you don't have to link it to a grade at all. So that's one possibility. You just, it doesn't go into the grade book. Another way is you can set up an assignment that's called a watch assignment. And what that does is it requires the students to watch the Voicethread in its entirety at normal speed. And so it registers, whether, I have to say it doesn't really, there's no way to know whether they're really listening. Of course, they could just hit play and leave the room. But as long as they play the whole Voicethread and use it on normal speed, then it will just automatically give them the grade, whatever grade that you assign it out of. It will automatically give that in Blackboard. And then the other kind of assessment is a comment assignment. And so this is where you require a certain number of comments. So for example, in the normal way that I use it is I give some lecture material, and then along the way, I'll prompt them in a couple ways. And so if I've prompted them in, let's say, 3 ways, then I'll set up the assignment where I'm going to require 3 comments. And there, that does require the instructor to go in there and grade it manually. So you go in and read those comments, and then you put in the score. You put in the score through Voicethread, and then it automatically links to the gradebook in Blackboard. Now, I will say one of the, as much as I love Voicethread, one problem with it does have to do with the grading feature, which is that when students leave comments, there's always a little confusion, and I have to clarify this with them, but when they leave comments in Voicethread, for some reason, Voicethread doesn't register in Blackboard that they've completed the assignment until I've graded it. And so there's always this lag time between when they've submitted the assignment and then it reads in Blackboard as just not submitted. But then when I grade it, it will show both as submitted and graded. So I usually have to tell the students, before I get 1,000 emails, tell them that that's the case so they know what's going on.
Carla had a question. Can you use a video that already lives in YouTube for a Voicethread watch assignment?
Yes. So that's very easy to do. Maybe I can probably demonstrate that pretty easily, actually. So this is, let me stop this real quick. Okay, so when you're editing a voice thread, you can upload media here, and then you can rearrange these in any way you want. But let's say you have a YouTube video, you would just click here and then click URL, and then the URL of the YouTube video that you want to put in here, and then click save. And it will take a little bit to process depending on how long the video is. But then after it processes, it will show you a thumbnail up there. And yeah, one just very easy way to use it is you can make your own videos or somebody else's video on YouTube and then put that into Voicethread, and that way you can ensure that students are watching it. So I always use it that way. I never link out to YouTube anymore. This way I can just make sure they're, at least playing it, if not paying attention to it. Was that answering the question, I hope?
I think so. Carlos said, okay, cool. I have short video lectures I want to make sure students listen to. I think that
Yes,
would be a really great way to do that.
Yeah.
John, I had a question. How many students do you usually have in your course on average? And if that has made a difference in how you utilize, what strategies you utilize for your student engagement?
Right. So it varies quite a bit. I would say usually between 20 and maxes out at 30. But I do have multiple classes that I use Voicethread in. Does it really change given the number of students? I don't really think so. It's the grading feature is very easy in Voicethread. It can be done pretty quickly. That's another thing that I like about it. So no, I really haven't adjusted how I use it, I guess, based on the number of students in it.
This is Eric again. I have one more question. Do you feel there is a or how high of, if any, of a learning curve do you feel there are for students that haven't used Voicethread before?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, I'm very leery of having students to learn some new tool. So Voicethread is pretty much the only tool I use outside of Blackboard. So that way they're not having to learn too much. And overall, I mean, I find that students catch on pretty quickly. Usually my students are more tech savvy than I am. So I haven't really had a huge problem with it. The only confusion for students typically is just why is it not showing as submitted in Blackboard right away?
Gotcha.
But other than that, they seem to catch on pretty. I mean, it's very intuitive.
Gotcha. Do you include resources for that as an extra technology, like for the first time that they're going to use it?
Right.
If they have
Yeah.
questions.
Right. So I have a module at the beginning of my course labeled, I think, Start Here or something like that. And then I put in there links to some YouTube videos that are not in Voicethread this time because they're still learning how to use it. But this one just takes them to a YouTube video where they are shown how to complete both comment assignments and watch assignments. And that's really pretty much all it takes. Those are like 2-minute videos, very short, and again, it's so intuitive, it really doesn't take a whole lot of time for them to pick up on.
That's good. That's excellent. Thank you.
And once again, I would love if anybody else uses Voicethread, if there's any other ways that you use them, or again, any other online learning strategies, I would be interested in learning about those too. So feel free to share those or any other questions as well.
I have another question. You had showed a few examples. Which do you did where they pair up and then where you sort of do the groups? Which do you find one to be to increase engagement more than the other? Just the general approach of how you're using it.
Well, I think the nice thing about using it either, where they start responding to each other, I think that's helpful for a lot of reasons. One, they learn from each other. And that is, I think, important just because, as we all know, there's a wide diversity of academic exposure in our classes, right? So some students are more academically prepared than others. And so I think having them interact with each other allows them to learn from each other a little bit. And I think that's a good way of dealing with that challenge. So I like that feature of it. And it also just helps to know that there's other human beings out there taking this class. Also, I'll share too I'll try to share this if I can. There's a rubric that can be used to grade Voicethread assignments. So let me share this. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so this is not a rubric that I created, but it is one that I stole off the internet. And fortunately, this time it says that I'm allowed to steal this off the internet, so that's good. But anyway, this is a Voicethread rubric, and you can see it's pretty simple, just the quantity of comments, the quality of comments, and then it gives extra credit for using video or voice comment. I think the big advantage of Voicethread is it allows students very easily to communicate with each other through video or voice, and that kind of humanizes the course. And so this gives them, it doesn't require them to do it that way in case they just don't have the technology, but it does give them extra credit to do it that way. So it encourages that use of Blackboard, yeah.
Yeah, I think I like that extra credit. Scott had said earlier, he said he was still sussing this out. If he had a pre-made assignment in Ultra already, would he just include a Voicethread link? He was trying to picture how Voicethread will be used within his discussion assignments.
Right. Good question. I think that, it kind of depends on what the nature of that assignment is. I think you could probably get it into Blackboard, but it's not going to be, so basically the way you set up an assignment is you when you're in Blackboard, just like you kind of set up any assignment where you can go to, what is that icon, where you go to some other outside source. I can't remember what the name is. I can't remember the name of it is off the top of my head.
Is it LTI? Is that what you mean, or the?
No, not the LTI. It's hold on. Content market.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you go to the content market, and then you go down and select Voicethread, and then once you go into Voicethread, then it will kind of walk you through the assignment builder. So it will ask you, first of all, whether you want it to be an assignment that's counting for points, or whether it's just you want to link out to a Voicethread without any points associated with it. And then if you select that you want to make this an assignment, then it will go through and ask you whether you want comments or watch assignments. So it kind of walks you through that process. But I think the best way to do it is to create the Voicethread first in Voicethread. And then after you've done that, then go back and link to it in Blackboard. You can do it the other way, but I haven't done it that way. I always just make the Voicethread first and then build the assignment after that. So that takes a little getting used to, but those links to the YouTube videos that I shared earlier, that walks you through at least how to create the Voicethread. But maybe I can just maybe share that, because what those links don't do, now that I'm thinking about it, is they don't really show you how to do that in Blackboard. So I can show this here in the last couple of minutes.
Okay.
If you, let's see, let me share my screen. I'll just share my whole screen. Okay.
Sherry had asked if you could share the rubric, but she found it, and then I just wanted to let everyone know that Ramona did put the link up there to it if you were interested in downloading that Voicethread rubric.
Right. Okay, so the way you would do this is just, if you're in a module or something like that, I'll just, actually, let me not do it here because this is a live class. Let's do this one. Okay, so you just go to Content Market, and then you go down to Voicethread, way down here at the end in alphabetical order. Where is it? There it is. Okay, and then it signs you into Voicethread. And so you can do the assignment builder. So this is where if you have a graded assignment or an individual Voicethread, this is just where you display a Voicethread, but there's no assignment associated with it. The course view is a link to all of the Voicethreads that have been shared with the course. And then the Voicethread homepage displays all Voicethreads from all of their courses if they have any more. But anyway, what I typically do is go to assignment builder, and then I select whether I wanted it to be a comment assignment or a watch assignment. I do not have students create their own Voicethreads. You can do that. That's not a feature that I typically use. So I will go to comment assignment usually, and then I just select the one that I want. So I did this example one for the KOOL Academy here, and then just select continue. And you can edit if you need to make any final edits. Hit continue. Okay, and then you can also put the required number of comments here, and then which type of comments you want to allow. So you could, if you want them to use microphone and webcam, you could just unselect the text, and it won't even give them that option. And then there's a bunch of other options there, and then you just continue through this. Assign the name to it. I won't do all of that, but you'll assign the name, the due date, all of that, hit publish, and then it automatically creates a column in Blackboard.
And that makes I gotcha. So, but that's still where you would have to have that delay of the assignment.
The delay. Oh yeah. So even there, it's still I just have to communicate with my students, right from the beginning that when they submit this, it will show in Voicethread as submitted, but when they go and they look in the Blackboard gradebook, it shows as unsubmitted until I grade it, and then it will show their grade in there. So I just tell them not to freak out about that.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think that's just about all. I did want to, we're got about a minute left, is that right? And yep. I did want to let everyone know that Wheeler Conover won the random attendance prize for attending this session. You won a syllabus travel coffee mug. Yay! So there you go. I'm sure Amy will be in touch with you to make sure that you get that. And is there any other questions or final comments that anybody wants to share? I appreciate everybody attending the session, and thank you, John, for sharing all of your Voicethread strategies and how that has really helped you increase student engagement.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. And from everybody in the online learning and the KOOL Conference 2022. It's been great having y'all here. You're welcome, Sherry. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.